on the soundstage in the digital media classroom here at Wellington High School. Welcome to another episode of Dialogue with the Dukes. I'm your host, Bill Berger, once again, and today's episode is being brought to you by the Scent Depot, located at 132 West Herrick in downtown Wellington. Today we are continuing our Thrive and Mind, Body, Spirit project, and I believe that this is the last Thrive program for the year. The young lady to my immediate left should need no introduction, as we have interviewed you at least twice, three times?
Yeah, I think this is my third time.
Third time today. So Liz Wolanski, she is from the Educational Service Center, and she is the Student Wellness and Success Coordinator for the Wellington School District and for Lorain County, is that correct?
For North Ridgeville City Schools, so
Okay.
we're hired out of the Educational Service Center.
Very good. Well, again, welcome, Liz. Wonderful to have you with us again. Today we're going to be talking about social and emotional learning. But before we get into that, let's just have a quick review, because you are from the Educational Services Center.
Yep.
What is the mission, the vision, and the values that are espoused by the Educational Service Center?
So the Educational Service Center's ultimate goal is to be the premier choice for educational needs of schools, individual schools, so it could be charter and private, and of course public school districts across Northeast Ohio. So we primarily serve districts in Lorain County. However, we do have districts in Huron County, Erie County, and we're starting to move into Cuyahoga County and provide services to schools on the west side of that county. The mission is we want to be able to provide leadership and innovation solutions for the communities with a focus on exemplary customer service. And so with that, the values focus on, collaboration. So we want to be collaborative, we want to be customer service oriented, and really ensuring that, the districts are, they're the customers, so we need to really make sure that we're providing them with what they truly need. Integrity, we want to be innovative because we know education is it's constantly changing. The role that I'm in through the ESC is an example of that, because 3 years ago, this specific role did not exist. And then of course values. So, we want to make sure that, again, the districts are paying for the services we provide, so we want to make sure they're good services and that we're being good stewards of taxpayer money.
Very good. Well, you are what's known as the Student Wellness and Success Coordinator. What is a Student Wellness and Success Coordinator?
All right, it is a mouthful. So the role of a Student Wellness and Success Coordinator, it's really, when this role was first created back in 2020, it's to help districts, provide sound quality student social, emotional, and learning programming. The state of Ohio, back in the spring of 2019, through the Ohio Department of Education, put out 5 social, emotional learning standards that were to tie in with the academic standards that were already there for math, English language, science, social studies. And so the role that I played was, how do we get social emotional learning programming into the schools that's effective, doesn't take away from teaching time, because we know kids, in order to be able to fully function well in the classroom and do well academically, it's really important that those social emotional needs are being addressed as well. Especially as a result of the pandemic, we've got a lot of kiddos who are struggling with anxiety and depression, and if they don't have the proper coping mechanisms or social emotional regulation skills, it's really hard for them to sit in a classroom and be able to learn. So this position was brought about because we knew that the districts across this county in particular had a need. We knew that there was programming that was already happening, but it was kind of piecemeal because there wasn't one designated person who could assist with making sure that it was being implemented correctly into fidelity. And so that's when the Educational Service Center, in partnership with the Mental Health Addiction and Recovery Services Board of Lorain County, as well as Lorain County Public Health, came together and said, maybe we can provide or offer a service to the districts, and it made sense to have it out of the ESC since there's other services like speech and language pathology, school psychology, curriculum, gifted instruction that are provided. So why can't we have a position like this where we'll assist schools with integrating those SEL or social emotional learning goals into their academic curriculum, but also address all students' SEL needs. So look at universal curriculum and how we can get in with all the students, but then also those students who have more there's more in-depth needs. They need either small group work, assistance, or individual work.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned, I believe that you said this was started in 2020.
Correct.
So it's been going for 2 years, is that correct?
Correct. As of the end of this school year, I will have been in the position for 2 years.
2 years. So in a nutshell, and going through all the things that you've been talking about, in a nutshell, why was the role actually created?
So the role was created, and again, it was as part of that collaboration between those three entities that I had mentioned earlier. And the goal was to assist local districts with better managing and streamlining social emotional learning programming and mental health programming. And again, helping to incorporate it with the academic piece, because we know, teachers have told us for years, kids are struggling in the classrooms. We know this. So helping them really identify, okay, what are some curriculums that we can get in there that fit in with their academic curriculums, but how can we do this in a way, because I know the other thing that teachers have so much on their plate, especially, in light of the pandemic, but even before, we knew that testing was a lot, and there were just so many other things. And so how could we assist them with identifying social emotional curriculums and just little interventions, simple things that they could do to help their kids better manage their feelings in the classroom so that they can focus and they can learn. And again, the thought was to bring in a person who could solely dedicate their time to this work. So meeting with the teachers, that's somebody who can meet with the teachers, meet with school staff at all levels, because social emotional learning isn't just in the classroom, it's in the cafeteria, it's on the playground. So being able to meet with all of the individuals in the school, but also looking at what programming have they done in the past, because there's lots of social emotional curriculums out there that focus on, anxiety, anger management, decision making, but what have schools tried, what has worked, what hasn't worked, and again, how can we make this more effective for them? And so that's where the idea came from.
Well, I mentioned at the beginning that we're going to be talking about something called SEL, or social emotional learning. What is social emotional learning?
So social emotional learning, it's the process of students and teachers, because even as adults, or not even just teachers, school staff in general, and the community, of developing self-awareness, self-control, and interpersonal skills that are vital for work and life success. And again, it's tied in with that academic piece, because again, we know if kids are struggling with that emotional piece or with mental health concerns, it's really hard for them to sit down and focus. So, so it looks at effective problem solving, to self-discipline, and again, impulse control, which goes along with decision making, emotional management, and it provides a foundation for long-term effects, so that it doesn't only help them as kids, but this is going to help them as they make that transition from high school into adulthood, whether they go directly into the workforce or whether they choose to do to go the college route. And then this can help them within their families too, and in their communities.
Very good. Well, when we come back after this message, we'll talk more about SEL, or social emotional learning. This is Dialogue with the Dukes. We are back. We hope that if you have anything in the need of skincare products, we hope that you will visit the Scent Depot located at 132 West Herrick in downtown Wellington. We've been talking with Ms. Liz Wolanski. She is the Student Wellness and Success Coordinator, part of the Educational Services Center. And we've been talking a lot specifically about social emotional learning. So obviously the next question is, why is it so important?
Well, I think especially when we look at the past 2 years with the pandemic, we've seen a significant increase in anxiety and depression among young people aged 3 to 17. And even prior to that, it was still like depression has always been, it's the leading cause of disability among all age groups in this country. And it's always been something that, we've had to address across all age groups. And so since the start of the pandemic, we've seen, in terms of depression, we've seen a 25% increase among youth aged 3 to 17. And then anxiety, we've seen a 20% increase among that same age group. So we know that it's something, and it's seeping out into the classroom. Teachers, just in working with the 3 buildings in this district, teachers are seeing an increase in kids who are having difficulties concentrating and focusing. And even with our little ones, and it isn't just unique to this district, because I work with districts across the county, little ones are having a hard time staying in the classroom. So we've got little ones who have gotten up and walked out of the classroom because they just can't, it's like it's too much. They don't have the coping skills to help self-regulate so that they can focus and learn. And so, and again, even prior to the pandemic, it was something that, as a result of technologies, just as a result of everything moving so fast, we've seen a steady uptick in the number of youth that have anxiety or depressive disorder diagnoses.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just something that, kids, school is a great environment to capture everybody. You have a captive audience because kids have to be at school. And so it makes sense to bring the programming into school and also to provide some relief to school staff so that they can teach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Well, of course, we all know that the Ohio Department of Education has always got to have their hand in all of this. So what are their standards and how do they actually fit into the academic standards within the school districts?
Okay. So there are 5 standards through the Ohio Department of Education. And the big Bible for all things social emotional learning comes from something called CASEL, which stands for the Collaborative for Academic SEL. And Ohio took their 5 standards from CASEL. And all 50 states now have standards that are based off of CASEL. So the standards are self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision making. And then within those 5 standards, like it can be, if you go to, and I can provide the information for ODE's website at the end, but if you go to ODE's website, they have an entire area that is dedicated to these 5 standards. And then there's also a crosswalk of how you can incorporate them into like the academic standards. Like for instance, when we think of relationship skills, a lot of kids, we've got kids in the room today, you've done group work, and being able to communicate effectively with your classmates. So there's a natural tie-in anytime that you're doing a group project, and it doesn't even matter what the topic area is. It could be in math, it could be in science, it could be in ELA or social studies. And again, the self-management, we think about the fact that there's self-discipline involved whenever you're doing your school assignments or homework. Homework's a big part of, especially for high school students. And it's helping you develop those time management skills so that you can sit down and do your homework and take take breaks as needed. But also, it's easily. I know I have 2 teenagers, and I see them get a little agitated at times when they can't grasp a concept. And so another way, and this is something really simple, easy teachers can do, is just having them learn how to step away when they need to take a breath because they can't get something, and then come back to it. And so again, there's a really elaborate information on ODE's website to show even like real specific detail of how they tie in and how how the standards can be used in each of those core subject areas.
Mm-hmm. Well, what are some of the SEL curriculums and interventions that are being used right now within the district?
All right, so Wellington has always done a really nice job. So even before I came here back in the fall of 2020, there was a lot of work already being done. And I was fortunate enough through my previous position, which was with the Mental Health Addiction and Recovery Services Board, to work with Wellington around some of the programming they were using. So, so there's 3 tiers, which I'll quickly touch on the 3 tiers, and then I'll go into the programming that the district is doing as part of each tier. So there's tier 1 is like universal. So that's social emotional learning programming every student in the district is getting, K through 12. Tier 2 is for kids who are struggling a little bit more, and so that it's kind of small group work. And on the academic side, it's kind of like some of that breakout for reading, for instance, for kids who might be struggling with reading. And then on the SEL mental health side, it would be like smaller groups, such as like an anxiety group. And then there's tier 3, which is the more individualized stuff, so individual counseling. And then on the academic side, students who have individual education plans and just like specific interventions that are tied in with that. And so the programming that we're doing here in the district, so K through 8, all of our kindergarten through 8th graders are using a program called Second Step. And again, those 5 standards that I mentioned, Second Step is a CASEL approved curriculum, and all 5 of those standards are addressed. And so the counselor, the social worker, and myself are assisting with the implementation and facilitation in the elementary school, so at Westwood. The school counselor at McCormick has done the facilitation of that program with the 4th through 8th graders at McCormick. It happens weekly at Westwood. It happens monthly. The groups are being provided monthly at McCormick because McCormick has a lot of stuff going on. So that's what's going on K through 8. 7th through 12th graders, and so this is the 7th graders, the 7th and 8th graders, in addition to getting the Second Step, they're also getting, so this is 7th through 12, are using a program called Vector Solutions. And again, Vector Solutions, a social emotional learning program that, again, follows those same ODE standards, are part of the program. And so there's a video series which actually have same age peers that are addressing topics such as anxiety. We know that unfortunately at the middle school and high school age there's a lot of pressure to use illegal substances, so there's substance abuse programming involved with that, vaping programming, and then of course there's decision making. We cover cyberbullying and bullying, and time management as a part of it too, just to help kids because they do have so many demands. You know, they're not just here in school, but there's also kids. You had talked about being at a softball game last night, so we've got student athletes and students who are in choir and band, and so just kind of helping them with that time management aspect, which is both the academic and the SEL side. We have Yoga for Classrooms, which is a universal SEL. Currently, we are using it primarily in the elementary school, but it is going to be implemented in McCormick next year, and we're trying to figure out creative ways to implement it here at the high school. So we actually have, between myself, one of the teachers here at the high school, and the middle school counselor, we're all trainers, so we're going to start training teachers next year in some of the skills so that they have quick, easy things to do when their kids just kind of need a little break, maybe in between lessons or right after a test. And so it's a program that can be done in like a quick, simple yoga move, like including breathing, so not just the moves, that can be done at their desks in as little as 5 minutes. Life Act is an organization out of Cuyahoga County that has provided suicide prevention programming to McCormick, so the 7th and 8th graders at McCormick, and then the 9th through 12th graders here at the high school, for probably 5 years now. And so they come in various times throughout the school year and provide their programming. And most recently they started to provide, they just provided a social emotional learning curriculum to the 5th and 6th graders at McCormick, and so with a focus on suicide prevention, because unfortunately suicide is the second leading cause of death among 10 through 24-year-olds in this country. We just started at McCormick. Again, McCormick's got a lot of stuff going on because middle school is where we see like the most changes, both on the physical side and on the cognitive and mental health side. We just started a program which is through Sandy Hook Promise called Save Promise, which stands for Students Against Violence Everywhere. That's a universal program, and the goal of that program is to help students help to reduce violence within the schools, which there'll be a heavy focus on bullying, but also to create a place where all students feel welcome. And so that's a program that's open to all students. And the kiddos are leaders. We have 6 7th graders that will be 8th graders in the fall who are taking a lead on that program, and they just went to all of the lunchrooms yesterday and shared with every single 4th through 8th grader what the program is about, and as a means to recruit members for next school year. There's another organization at Cuyahoga County that provided programming to our 8th graders called Effective Leadership Academy. They did their 8-week transitions program with our 8th graders. Again, an SEL program, and the primary focus there is to help kids develop the skills that they're going to need when they make that big transition to the high school next year. So there was, again, a lot of focus on self-regulation, basic coping mechanisms, time management skills. And so, and then there's like little things, like myself and the counselors and the district social worker have provided PD to teachers on little real simple things they can do. Like SEL isn't just the curriculums that I mentioned, but it's also just taking a step back and slowing down our breathing, especially after we've done something anxiety provoking like taking a test. Or, maybe there's been a really hard assignment or lesson that's been focused on in the classroom. So just like teaching them how to breathe, allowing them to take little brain breaks. So maybe they're walking around the classroom and just doing a mindful walk, things like that. So there's like the more structured, and then there's the simple, easy things that teachers can implement.
Well, if people are interested, you mentioned the OED website. Where can they go to get information, and where can they contact you if they have specific questions?
So the ODE website is just ode.oh.gov, and then you can go there and put in a search for the SEL standards, and there is just a lot of information. As far as me, I can be reached here at my Wellington school address, which is I have a last name. E. Wolanski, WOLAN as in Nancy, SKI at wellingtonvillageschools.org.
Very good. Well, as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, this is indeed the last Thrive episode of the year. And just very quickly going through as a quick reminder, we talked about substance use and abuse. We talked about the youth and exercise. And we also talked about winter exercise and the fact that we were in competition with Midview and that other school out there at LaGrange and for steps. And Wellington actually won the competition. We actually had 2 episodes on food and nutrition. We had a dose of knowledge concerning the Thrive program. We had underage drinking, and of course today we had SEL, or social emotional learning. So we hope that you have had a good smattering of what goes on with Thrive and the Mind, Body, Spirit Project. And we'd like to once again thank Liz Wolanski for coming in today and talking about the SEL program, or social emotional learning. And we'd like to thank all of the people who came in to talk about Thrive and the Mind, Body, Spirit Project here on Dialogue with the Dukes. We'll be back again, I believe, at least one more time this year with Dialogue with the Dukes.